are you being wrongly accused?
But now a major reversal by the federal judge in Miami. The judge found a level of psychopathy that suggests Timothy could snap at any time. And now, as Timothy Hudson gets ready to face trial as an adult, he is finally locked up. Finally, Timothy Hudson has been locked up. Basically, the judge found he could snap at any moment. Those are powerful words and kind of scary when you think about it. Anyway, we're going to take a look at this decision.
He could snap at any time. Those are not the words of a prosecutor trying to make a case. Those are not the words of a victim's family standing outside a courthouse. Those are the words of a federal judge. A federal judge who, until the moment he wrote them, had been letting the accused killer sleep in a bed instead of a cell. That is where we are. That is what this case has come to. And if you are sitting there wondering how in the world a teenager accused of sexually assaulting and murdering his own stepsister on a Caribbean cruise ship was walking around free while prosecutors begged a court to lock him up, you are asking exactly the right question. Stay with me, because the answer is one of the most troubling things I have seen come out of a federal courtroom in a very long time. Her name was Anna, 19 years old. She had braces. She left the family dinner early that night because her mouth hurt and her stomach was upset. She walked down the hallway of a Carnival cruise ship called the Horizon, stepped into cabin 8343, and was never seen alive again. The surveillance cameras on that ship captured every person who entered that room. There were only 3. Anna, her younger half-brother, and her 16-year-old stepbrother, Timothy Hudson. The medical examiner's conclusion was not ambiguous. Anna had been sexually assaulted and then asphyxiated, strangled, on a ship in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, in a locked cabin the size of a large closet, with nowhere to run and no one to hear her. The crime scene, as contained as it was brutal, preserved everything.
I think to talk about this story, you have to talk about the crime scene and what happened there. This was a violent death. Absolutely violent. And think about the scene here. We're talking about a family member accused of doing this, someone who perhaps you could have some level of trust with, someone she was sharing a room with, but to be sexually assaulted and then strangled to death, knowing that you're fighting for your life, you're fighting for your breath.
So why did it take 3 months for the FBI to make an arrest? And why, once that arrest was made and the charges were filed, did the judge let Timothy Hudson go home? That is the story we are here to tell today. The family that boarded the Carnival Horizon on November 2nd, 2025, out of the port of Miami, was what people call a blended family. 2 sets of children, brought together when their parents found each other. They departed for a 1-week Caribbean cruise. 3 generations, 3 cabins, grandparents in one, parents and the younger children in another, and the 3rd cabin, the teen cabin, cabin 8343, shared by Anna Kepner, her younger half-brother, and her stepbrother, Timothy Hudson. Think about what that means before we go any further. This was not a stranger. This was someone Anna ate breakfast with, someone she had known since her parents' remarriage, someone she had every reason to trust, or at the very least, tolerate. The allegation here is not just a violent crime. It is a betrayal of the most fundamental kind. And that betrayal, according to prosecutors, had been building for a long time.
How under one roof could one member of the blended family allegedly attack, torture, and murder another member? There had to be something wrong with it. If prosecutors are right in what they're saying here, there has to be something wrong with this young man. Who does this at age 16? You're part of a blended family. Your mother married this man. This man had children. You and your siblings, and you're all joined together as a family. To have a second, like a new beginning, a new chance. You come from a broken home. Now mom has found someone that she loves, and together you can build a new family unit. But if these allegations are true, what are we talking about here with this 16-year-old Timothy Hudson? And that's what the judge was talking about in this decision, what this judge was finally talking about in this decision, which was a level of psychopathy that was so bad that he could snap at any time.
Anna's ex-boyfriend, speaking at her memorial, described watching something happen over FaceTime that he could not forget. He was on the phone with Anna in the early morning hours. She fell asleep. The call stayed connected. And then, through that phone, he saw Timothy Hudson climb on top of her. He yelled at him. Timothy heard the voice, got scared, and ran, the footsteps disappearing through the house. An obsession, the ex-boyfriend called it. An obsession that Anna's family apparently did not take seriously enough when it was reported to them. Write that down. It matters in ways we have not gotten to yet.
What you know, what do you think happened at the room?
I think that he walked in there and basically we walked in there and tried to get on top of her and tried to do a sexual thing with her, but he got caught by me in the process of it.
Thank you further for that.
Yeah. And she got scared of it and wanted to go sleep over with friends and whenever she could at mine, but she never could because her stepmom was very controlling of it, and I got that, but I was like, her stepbrother is trying to go on top of her in the middle of the night, and they didn't believe me. So.
Hold it right there for a second.
Do you think this could have been prevented?
I just want to give you a little context. He's describing something that happened months before what happened on this cruise ship. He is FaceTiming Anna, his girlfriend at the time. And the FaceTime is still on. It's early morning hours. And Anna, I think, is falling asleep. But he's still watching. I guess he's watching her sleep. And then he says he sees Timothy Hudson jump on top of Anna, not knowing that the FaceTime was still going on. And this is what he's describing. This is what he says he witnessed. Let's listen to more.
What type of person was she?
She was a great woman, you know. I met her at school.
And the circumstances behind her death, you find them to be suspicious? And if so, tell me why.
It was suspicious because I knew that the brother did it, and yeah.
How do you know that?
Because of the past things that happened with him, like I was saying.
Which were what?
About the FaceTime and stuff.
What's the FaceTime?
Whenever I was on FaceTime with her, and when I was on FaceTime with her, and she was laying down, and the brother tried to go on top of her, and yeah.
You saw that?
Yeah.
And then, how did she react to that?
I was like, what the hell are you doing in the room, you know? Then he got scared and like ran away, and I heard his footsteps like running through the house, you know, because he got caught.
On November 6th, the family returned to the Horizon after a port stop in Cozumel, Mexico, and sat down together for dinner. Anna said she was not feeling well. She had braces, and they were hurting her. She had an upset stomach. She excused herself early and walked back to cabin 8343. What happened next is documented on video. Not allegedly, on video.
On this ship. All right, let's take a look at some of that footage. 7:35 p.m., Timothy Hudson enters 8343, the cabin. So he gets in there first. 7:38, Anna enters the cabin. This is a significant fact. This is the last time she is seen alive. So she goes in, and there's no video of her ever exiting that cabin. She goes in there, and there's just two people in there at this point. Timothy and Anna, the defendant and the victim.
At 7:35 in the evening, Timothy Hudson entered cabin 8343. 3 minutes later, at 7:38, Anna entered the cabin. The surveillance camera in that hallway captured her walking through that door. It is the last time she appears on any camera, anywhere on that ship. She never exits, not once. The ship has cameras in every corridor, at every exit point, on every deck. There is no footage of Anna Kepner leaving that cabin alive. At 7:51, the half-brother arrived at the door with 2 friends. He entered the room, and then, within minutes, he left. Why he left is something only he knows. But the jury will hear the answer to that question directly from him, and it will not be easy testimony for a young man who lost his half-sister under circumstances he will carry for the rest of his life. And then, nothing. For 2.5 hours, the cameras show no one entering or exiting cabin 8343. 2.5 hours. Timothy Hudson and Anna Kepner. At 10:13, Timothy opens the cabin door. He leans out. He looks left. He looks right. He checks the hallway in both directions before stepping out. Now, you might be asking yourself, isn't that just something people do? Maybe. But lawyers have a phrase for behavior like this: consciousness of guilt. It describes actions taken by someone who knows they have done something wrong and is behaving in ways that reflect that awareness. Looking left and right before stepping out of a cabin where your stepsister's body is hidden is, to a prosecutor, exactly that.
It's going to be difficult. 10:13, we're flashing forward. There's no activity from 7:51. You're talking about more than 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Timothy opens the cabin door and is seen looking left and right down the hallway. He's looking from side to side down the hallway. You can make an argument based upon that dynamic, which I can visualize in my head without even seeing the video. Some level of consciousness of guilt. He wants to make sure no one's out there. Why else would you poke your head out to see who's there before walking outside? Right? And now he walks outside. And then between 10:23 and 10:49, Timothy enters and exits the cabin 2 more times. Again, no one else is going in and out of the cabin. No one else. Just Timothy. The half-brother is nowhere to be seen. He's gone. He was only in there for a couple of moments. And then he left. And then it's 2.5 hours, Timothy and Anna.
Between 10:23 and 10:49 that night, Timothy enters and exits the cabin 2 more times. Just Timothy, no one else. The half-brother has not returned. It is only him, moving in and out, while Anna, based on everything the evidence will ultimately show, is already gone.
11:21 to 23, Anna's half-brother. Now this is an important moment again. The half-brother returns and enters and exits 8343. He tells the FBI he did not see his sister Anna while he was in the cabin at this moment. So he's in there for a couple minutes and doesn't see Anna. Where is she? Well, we know where she was found. She was found hidden inside that cabin. She's never exited the cabin. There's no video of her leaving. So she has to be in there. She's either alive and hiding or dead and hidden. 11:23, the half-brother leaves. 8 minutes later, Timothy leaves the cabin.
At 11:07, Timothy re-enters the cabin. 14 minutes later, the half-brother returns to 8343 and goes inside briefly. He tells the FBI he did not see his half-sister Anna during that visit. Think about what that means. Anna has never been captured on camera leaving that cabin. She is not in view when her half-brother enters. She is either alive and somehow concealed, or dead and already hidden. There is no third option in a room that small. At 12:09 in the morning, the half-brother tries to enter the cabin again. The video shows him at the door, and the video shows Timothy Hudson putting his arm out to block it from opening. His exact words, as reported to the FBI, "Wait, don't come inside. I'm changing." The half-brother waited in the hallway. When he was finally allowed back in, all the lights in the cabin were on. The bathroom door was open, the closet door was open, every door open, every light blazing, and Anna was nowhere to be seen. Ask yourself why every door in a small cruise ship cabin would be standing open and every light would be on at midnight. I will let you sit with that question for a moment. Now we move to the morning of November 7th. At 9:26 a.m., Timothy leaves cabin 8343. At 9:32, surveillance cameras find him on deck 11, smoking a cigarette.
How much he smokes, I don't know why he smokes. But I think it's fair for a prosecutor to argue under these circumstances. This is someone who is nervous. This is someone coming to the realization of what he's done. This is someone who doesn't know what to do next. And how many times in a movie have you seen that scene, right? Where someone is like trying to figure out what to do and they're smoking that cigarette, trying to figure it out. That's what's in my mind right now. I'm not even looking at the video, but that's what I'm picturing. Someone who's trying to figure out a way out of all of this. 9:39, 9:46, he's seen walking on the jogging track. Again, pacing around, trying to figure out what to do. I'm in a state of frantic. I don't know what to do. I'm frantic. What did I do? Oh my goodness. This is real. The reality is setting in at this point. 9:48, he goes back to the cabin. 9:50, he leaves the cabin. But this is important. This is so important. He's observed holding something in his left hand, and it looks like he's reaching into the sweatshirt front pocket.
At 9:39 and 9:46, he is captured on the jogging track, pacing. Not jogging, pacing. The body language of a person who cannot sit still, cannot think straight, cannot figure out what to do next. At 9:48, he goes back to the cabin. 2 minutes later, he comes back out. And this time, the camera captures him holding something in his left hand, reaching into the front pocket of his sweatshirt. He walks from the forward section of the ship to the midship lobby.
After he leaves, he is then observed walking to the midship lobby because cabin 8343 was towards the front of the ship, and he takes the stairs to deck 10, then walking to the aft or the rear of the ship through the Lido Marketplace restaurant. So he's going somewhere. He's like on a mission to go somewhere. This is where we get to where he's going. 9:52. Timothy is observed reaching into an area near the trash bin where Anna's cell phone is found. Anna's cell phone. Put in a trash bin. 9:53, Timothy is observed returning on the same route. So he goes back the same way that he came, right? The trash can, Anna's cell phone, like 2 + 2 = 4. The cell phone is found in an area where he was found after he left the cabin where Anna is found. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he's covering up his crime. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he is trying to get rid of evidence.
Down the stairs to deck 10, through the Leo Marketplace restaurant all the way to the aft of the ship. At 9:52, surveillance cameras observe him reaching into an area near a trash bin. At 9:53, he turns around and walks back the same way he came. Later, investigators found Anna's cell phone in that trash bin. This is where we need to stop and talk about something called circumstantial evidence, because the defense will almost certainly use this word as if it means weak. It does not. Circumstantial evidence means you did not see someone commit an act, but you have a set of surrounding facts that lead to one rational conclusion. A jury does not need to see the phone placed in the trash. They need only ask themselves, whose phone was it? Where was it found? Who was seen at that location immediately before it was found? And why would anyone carry a dead girl's phone to a trash bin on the other end of a cruise ship? 2 + 2 = 4. Anna's family, meanwhile, had been searching for her. Announcements over the ship's intercom. Her father checking every deck, every public space, every location he could think of. Nobody checked the cabin again because they had already looked and she was not visible. She was not in the bathroom. She was not in any obvious place. She had, to all appearances, simply vanished from a ship in the middle of the ocean.
A cruise ship attendant goes into the cabin to clean and quickly exits the room to get her supervisor. Anna's body discovered wrapped in a blanket stuffed underneath her bed. It appeared that someone had tried to hide her by partially sliding her underneath the bed and placing a box of life vests to obstruct the view of the body from the rest of the room.
At 10:24 a.m., a cruise ship attendant entered cabin 8343 to clean it. She walked in. She stopped. She walked back out immediately to find her supervisor. Anna's body was found wrapped in a blanket, partially pushed underneath her bed, with a box of life vests placed in front of her to block the view from the rest of the room. Someone had taken a 19-year-old girl and hidden her under her own bed.
Evidence that takes the jury potentially inside the mind of this defendant. At 11:27 a.m., Timothy was seen walking down the hallway towards his cabin, 8343. As he walked by the cabin, he made no effort to look and see what was happening inside, even though so many people were still inside the cabin with the door open. He looked straight ahead and walked away. I don't want to see what's in there. I'm not going to look in. Why? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, because he knows exactly what's in there. This is powerful stuff, and it's caught on video, so the jury will get to see it themselves.
And here is the detail that will follow this case into the courtroom and sit in the jury box with every single juror for the entire trial. At 11:27 that same morning, Timothy Hudson was captured on surveillance camera walking down the hallway toward cabin 8343. The door was open. People were inside. The scene had been discovered. And as Timothy walked past that door, he did not look in. Not a glance, not a flinch. He looked straight ahead and kept walking. Because he already knew exactly what was in there.
Other evidence that's going to be extremely important here are the lab results. This is some of the forensic evidence. Swab number 4, a swab from inside the vaginal canal, tested positive for male sperm in addition to the victim's own DNA. So that's swab number 4. All right, I'm circling swab 4. Swab number 5, a second DNA swab of the victim's vaginal canal, were negative for sperm, but did test positive for male DNA. Okay? In addition to the victim's own DNA. Based on these preliminary results, the FBI obtained a search warrant for Timothy's DNA. DNA swabs were also obtained from a minor who lives out of state with whom the victim had sexual intercourse while on the cruise. Okay, that's a significant fact. She engaged in sexual conduct with another person on the ship. That person needs to be investigated as well, right? As part of what the FBI was doing here. Swab number 4, the one that tested positive for sperm, minor witness 2, was excluded as a contributor. The results from this item had very strong support for the inclusion of Timothy as the contributor of the male DNA in the mixture. Swab 5 came back negative for sperm, but positive for male DNA. Minor witness 2 was excluded. The results from this item had very strong support for the inclusion of Timothy. So what's the evidence we have here, folks? Yes, she engaged in sexual activity with someone else that was on the ship. But we tested the DNA that was found. He was excluded. You know who was included, ladies and gentlemen? The defendant.
Now, and this is the moment you have been waiting for since the first line of this video. Let's talk about what a federal judge did with all of this. Let's talk about why one of the most powerful and consequential decisions in this entire case was, for months, the wrong one. When Timothy Hudson was charged, He was 16 years old. Under federal law, that means his case began in the juvenile system.
The allegations of the cover-up. Because he was under 18, the only federal vehicle to charge him under U.S. maritime jurisdiction was through the Juvenile Delinquency Act. And that's where it starts, right? You're 16 years old. Initial jurisdiction for the case is in the Juvenile Delinquency Act, or juvie as we call it, right? Juvie court. Whether it's in the state or in the federal system, it's somewhat similar. You're under the age of majority, you're under the age of 18. Initially, you are considered a juvenile. And we all know the juvenile system is much different than the adult system. The juvenile system is based upon what can we do for the defendant? How can we make him or her better? How do we take this broken child and fix them so we can return them to society as quickly as possible? I worked in the juvie system. That's it. That's the basis of it. Has nothing to, the word punishment doesn't even come into play. Has nothing to do with punishment. Has everything to do with what can we do to help this poor juvenile.
Here is how that works, because it matters enormously. The Juvenile Delinquency Act, Federal Statute 18 U.S.C. 5032, governs cases involving defendants under 18. The philosophy of the juvenile system is fundamentally different from adult criminal court. It is not built around punishment. It is built around rehabilitation, around the question of what we can do to fix a broken young person and return them to society. There is no death penalty. The emphasis is on treatment, supervision, and intervention. But the law also recognizes that some crimes are simply too serious and some defendants too dangerous to remain in the juvenile system.
With what can we do to help this poor juvenile? And that's where this begins. The United States proceeded by information on February 2nd, alleging first-degree murder under USC 1111 and aggravated sexual abuse. Okay. That's when things escalate. When juveniles of a certain age are charged with crimes like this, it becomes an obvious basis for prosecutors to try to get them waived up to adult court. And it's been held to be constitutional that, yes, you can take juveniles of a certain age and bring them up and charge them and treat them the same way you would treat adults. The only difference being when they're locked up, they're segregated from the adults. So you have like the young offenders, youthful offenders who are together sort of in one area of whatever prison or jail they're in. And the scarier, I guess, adults are in another section until you reach 18 or 21, depending upon the jurisdiction. And then you're thrown in with the rest of everyone. And that's the only real difference. Everything else is pretty much the same. You're not eligible for the death penalty. But in terms of the way you are treated and punished, now all of a sudden, okay, you're charged with serious crimes as an adult. The defendant is charged with first-degree murder and aggravated sexual abuse. Murder is not merely a serious crime. It is the gravest crime, and it is the one by its nature involves violence and bespeaks danger to others. That's why when you watch most murder trials on court TV, the defendant does not walk in and out of the courtroom. They're locked up, usually without bond, because it's a murder case, because of the potential danger in the allegation.
Prosecutors can petition to have a juvenile transferred or waived up to adult court. Once that transfer happens, the defendant is treated as an adult for purposes of trial, sentencing, and critically, pretrial detention. That transfer happened in this case. Timothy Hudson was transferred to adult status. And when that happened, a different law took over his pretrial release status. The Bail Reform Act, 18 U.S.C. 3142, is the statute that governs whether an adult federal defendant gets detained before trial or released. Under the Bail Reform Act, a judge examining a murder charge is required to consider the nature of the offense, the weight of the evidence, and the danger the defendant poses to the community. Here is what should have been obvious the moment that transfer was complete. Timothy Hudson was accused of sexually assaulting and murdering a family member in a locked room. The FBI had DNA evidence placing him at the scene. There was video of him surveilling the hallway, hiding something under a sweatshirt, walking to a trash bin, and strolling past the crime scene without looking inside. A former boyfriend had reported a prior attempted assault on FaceTime. The medical examiner had confirmed sexual assault and strangulation. And yet, for months after the transfer to adult status, Timothy Hudson was not in federal custody. He was in the care of caretakers. He had monitoring. He had supervision. And prosecutors went back to that court again and again, filing motion after motion, arguing that this defendant needed to be detained, that the danger was real, that the evidence was overwhelming, that the law, once he was transferred to adult court, required the judge to apply the Bail Reform Act. The judge kept declining.
So let's get to this decision, because this is a huge reversal. Prosecutors were fighting again and again, trying to keep Timothy Hudson locked up pending the trial because they were concerned about the danger. So let's get to it. After thoroughly reviewing this case once again, you see, the judge is acknowledging that, yeah, I've gone through this before, but I got to do it again. Now that defendant has been transferred to adult status under Section 5032, the court is bound to grant the government's motion in its entirety. The court now finds that defendant should be held going forward in the custody of the U.S. Marshal pending his trial in this case. So yes, finally, the obvious outcome sort of resonates with the judge. And I am shocked that it took this long. Absolutely shocked. And the reason being, as we go through this order and analyze the findings of fact and the conclusions of law, it should have been obvious from the beginning. My father was a federal judge. Like, that's part of your job as a judge. Like, even if the prosecution and defense aren't doing their job, you need to do your job. You're the one who is either letting an accused murderer out or holding them in custody. It's up to you, the one with the robe on the bench.
Think about what it means when a person in a position of that much power, with that much information in front of them, keeps arriving at a different conclusion than the one the evidence demands. We do not need to speculate about motives. We only need to look at what the judge himself ultimately wrote when he finally changed his mind. The court finds that the defendant's conduct suggests a level of psychopathy and lack of remorse that by itself raises a serious concern that the defendant can snap at any time, despite the well-meaning and serious efforts of his caretakers to make sure this does not happen.
Sexual assault charge, the government's case for a forcible rape is beyond clear and convincing. Clear and convincing is a legal standard. The evidence, clear and convincing, it's over 50%. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's beyond clear and convincing. Indeed, it suggests a level of psychopathy and lack of remorse that by itself raises a serious concern that the defendant can snap at any time, despite the well-meaning and serious efforts of his caretakers to make sure this doesn't happen. This is the judge saying, I get it. You've done a good job in the last, bunch of months, but he could still snap at any time. You could be the victim of it. Anyone could be the victim of it. We don't know.
He could snap at any time. Those words are in a judicial order. The same judge who had previously declined to detain him now wrote those words. Nothing in the evidence had fundamentally changed. The DNA evidence existed from the beginning. The video surveillance existed from the beginning. The prior FaceTime incident existed from the beginning. The strangulation murder of a trapped family member existed from the beginning. What changed?
The question is, why did it take the judge this long to figure this out? Like, why? How is this not evident from the beginning? How is this not evident from the beginning? That's what I want to know. Like, what changed? Nothing really changed. It's just, oh, wait a minute. Oh, you know what? This kid might be a little dangerous. He's been dangerous from the beginning, based upon the allegations. None of that has revealed itself, unless there's a piece of evidence that's been sealed that the judge is not referencing in his decision, knowing this decision would be public. I don't know if there was some sort of evaluation of the defendant that has subsequently been done. And that might be part of what the defense is doing here. They may want him evaluated because I don't know what their defense is going to be. Going to get to that in just a little bit. But when you're talking about whether or not someone gets detained or gets out on bond or is placed in some sort of ankle monitoring situation, the biggest factor is the danger to society and the seriousness of the offense. And none of that has changed, unless there was some sort of a new evaluation that suddenly woke this judge up. But just looking at what he's accused of and having a sense.
The judge's own order offers a partial legal answer. He cites the transfer to adult status and writes that 18 U.S.C. 5034, the Juvenile Delinquency Act, ceased to govern the defendant's pretrial release upon that transfer, that the Bail Reform Act now controls. But here is the thing that should make every person watching this genuinely uncomfortable. The transfer to adult status had already happened months earlier. The law had always been that. The judge, in his own order, was acknowledging a legal reality that had existed for quite some time.
The court holds that upon the transfer of this prosecution to adult status, 18 U.S.C. 5034, which is the Juvenile Delinquency Act, ceased to govern the defendant's pretrial release, that the Bail Reform Act now controls. This, to me, is the shocking part of all of this. He was waived up a while ago. And you should know that once that happens, like the law is clear. And here the judge is stating, well, the law is this. Yeah, the law has always been that. Why are we just figuring this out now? Like, that's a little troubling to me.
Federal judges have law clerks, typically 2, drawn from the top graduates of the top law schools in the country. Their entire job is independent legal research. Their purpose is to ensure the judge has a complete and accurate picture of what the law requires, independent of what either side argues. For a federal court to have sat with a transferred adult defendant facing first-degree murder and aggravated sexual abuse charges and not applied the Bail Reform Act is the kind of thing that does not have a clean or satisfying explanation.
And there are times, I get it, where a lot of times judges will rely upon the parties to make certain arguments and then rule on their arguments. But judges have an obligation. And federal judges, I know, because my dad was a federal judge, they have law clerks. They have 2 law clerks who can do all the research on every case, independently of what the prosecution, the government, or the defense has provided. And I know my father would always have his law clerks do independent research of every issue, because you can't believe what either side is necessarily saying. And you have 2 law clerks. And the clerks who work for federal judges are like, these are the smartest of the smart. To get a federal clerkship, you have your choice. My father would bring in, the smartest from whatever school they went to. And a lot of them went to the top law schools. So you're talking about really smart law clerks researching something and trying to figure out what the law is. And it took this long for this court to come to this decision. The government has established by clear and convincing evidence that no condition or combination of conditions of release will reasonably assure the safety of the community going forward. And he's been ordered detained pending the trial pursuant to USC 3142.
And that should matter to you. Here is why. If you ever find yourself watching a case, or God forbid, involved in one, and a judge's ruling seems to defy the plain reading of what the law requires, do not assume the judge is right simply because of the robe. Federal judges are extraordinarily talented. They are, in the main, the best legal minds in the country, but they are also human. They rely on arguments presented to them. They operate under crushing caseloads. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes the obvious conclusion arrives later than it should. The lesson this case teaches, more than any other, is this. The system is not automatic. Justice requires people inside that system to keep pushing. Prosecutors in this case filed motion after motion. They kept coming back. They did not accept the first ruling as the final word. They pressed the argument until the argument was heard. And eventually, a federal judge wrote the words he should have written months earlier.
Thank goodness it has finally happened. And think about how scary this is, right? For the rest of the family. Because I don't know what the dynamics are. Something made him allegedly, again, presumed innocent, snap and kill one member of his blended family. What would keep him from perhaps going after another member of the blended family, especially with the dynamics that are happening now, where he is not getting the support of the family, including his mother, it appears. Clearly, his stepfather, no way, not on his side. But I don't think any member of that unit, that family unit, that blended family unit that he was part of, is supporting him anymore. So what would keep him from acting out against them or acting out irrationally against anyone? Is a danger.
Timothy Hudson is now in federal custody pending trial. The trial is scheduled for September. A former federal prosecutor rates the strength of the case against him at a 95 out of 100.
And now finally, Timothy Hudson will be locked up pending his trial scheduled for September. So how strong is the case against Timothy Hudson? Like, if I had to go 0 to 10 on it, I'm a former prosecutor, based upon what we know and what I'm going to go through here, I would put it at like a 9.5 in terms of strength. I never go 10. I never go 10 because I never know what those 12 people are going to do inside the jury box, right? But this is like a 9.5. This is a 9.5 for many reasons. Let's go through the timeline and the evidence here that prosecutors are going to have and what they will present.
The defense, based on court transcripts, is expected to argue the sexual activity was consensual.
I want you to take a look at this. These are some reporter notes from pool reporter notes. The reporter that went into one of the hearings and had to take handwritten notes inside federal court. And this is from May 27th. The judge, circumstantial evidence or premeditated murder. And then the judge said on the sexual assault charge, tangible. And then we believe from the notes here that this was an argument made by the defense counsel, which again may get us into what their defense is going to be to the sexual assault. Sexual activity occurred, no evidence of abuse. No evidence of abuse. And I think that last word, you look on this handwritten note again, is abuse. Sexual activity occurred, but no evidence of abuse. That means consensual. So at this trial, I believe the defense will be to the sexual assault is it wasn't a sexual assault. It was a consensual relationship that Anna wanted to keep secret from her family, from her boyfriend, from the world, because this was her stepbrother.
A secret relationship that Anna herself wanted. They are also expected to point the finger at the half-brother.
You ready? Take a look at this. This is a transcript from the cross-examination of an FBI special agent. Again, Timothy Hudson's attorney asking the questions. Your response to the court's question, you thought that when the half-brother entered the room at 11:51, that Anna had already been killed, right? The agent says, yes. Question. And a significant part of your basis for that conclusion is what the half-brother told you. We've got that blurred out, the half-brother's name. That he had not seen his sister at 11:51, right? Answer. That is partly true. Then the question from the attorney, which takes us inside where the defense is going to go. What if the half-brother, again blurred out, was lying? Does your theory fall apart then? The answer, no, I don't think so. There was only a period of time, a significant period of time where all this could have occurred, which would have been from 7:50 something until about 10 p.m. Other than that, the ins and outs of both Timothy and the half-brother were very insignificant time frames. Wasn't the half-brother in the room from 12:09 to 9:50? The answer, yes. So that's 9 hours. They're going to point the finger at the half-brother. The younger half-brother, they're going to point the finger at him. That's the defense. It's got to be. Consensual sexual affair. The half-brother figures out what's going on here, gets angry with his half-sister, and kills her. But under their theory, they do it while Timothy Hudson is in the room, and Timothy Hudson allows it to happen.
Noting he was in the room from roughly midnight to 9:50 in the morning, an argument requiring the jury to believe a younger sibling killed his half-sister, while Timothy Hudson stood by and did nothing. Whether any of that reaches 12 jurors in a deliberation room and produces reasonable doubt, no one can say with certainty. That is what trials are for. What is not uncertain is this. A 19-year-old girl with braces and a stomachache went to her cabin on a family vacation and never came home. And for months, the person accused of putting her under that bed walked in and out of rooms without handcuffs, because the court that was supposed to lock the door did not read the law it was bound to apply. The system finally corrected itself, but the family of Anna Kepner had to live through every day of that delay.